Thank you, Pastor Glenn. I'm afraid your introduction might have overqualified me a little bit, but I appreciate it anyway. About 30 days ago, Glenn asked me, he said, "Mark, would you mind sharing on the subject of stewardship?" And I said, "Glenn, that's a little out of my comfort zone, to be up there in front of those people." I said, what if I'm not very good at it? What if it's bad? He said, "Don't worry about that." He said, "Do you know who the most important person is in the sanctuary when the service begins?" I said, "No, sir, I really don't." He said, "It's the guy in the sound booth." He said, "Don't worry, if you're bad, he'll just turn your mic down so that nobody's going to hear you anyway." Well, I am glad to be here today. Our subject matter is stewardship. On the front of your bulletin, long-term investing is our title. And I want to call your attention to our scripture. It comes from Matthew 25. You can follow along in your church Bible. I believe it's going to be above my head here in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to read this to you. "For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. And he had received the 5 talents, went at once and traded with them and made 5 more. He had the 2 talents, went away and made 2 more. But he had received the 1 talent, went and dug a hole in the ground and buried his master's money. Now after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled those accounts. And he had received the 5 talents, came forward saying, 'Master, I've made 5 more.' His master said, 'Well done.' He had received the 2 talents, came forward saying, 'Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here, I have made 2 more.' His master said, 'Well done.' But he had received the 1 talent, came forward and said, 'Master, I knew you were a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seeds. I was afraid, and I went and I hid your talent in the ground. Here you'll have what is yours.' But his master answered him and said, 'You wicked and lazy servant, you should have at least invested my money with the banker, so upon my return, I would have received it back with interest.'" There's a couple of things that are notable in this. I particularly like parables because they're easy to understand, and that works well for me. Jesus often taught in parables, I believe, to make it easy for us to understand. But one note, talent, as it's in this scripture, is not as we think of it today. It's not who can dunk a basketball or hit a golf ball 400 yards. A talent, as it's described here, is actually a measure of money. I had to read that a couple times. But again, this is an easy one to understand. The master was pleased with the servants who invested well, and he was displeased with the servants who did not. There's one thing I had to read a couple of times to get, though, and it was this. The master also, he knew his servants. He didn't summon his servants all together and say, "Okay, here's the deal. I'm going away on a trip, and I'm going to give you all a talent, and good luck. When I get back, y'all let me know how you did." He didn't do that. He knew them better than that. He gave each person talents according to their ability. He knew them very well. And as I was thinking about that and trying to decide what I was going to do this morning, I thought, who knows me really well? You see people in church all the time. You shake their hand, you talk to them, but do you really know them? So the first thing I did when I decided to speak today is I said, well, I'm going to call some of those people who know me real well. So I did. I called my mother. Your mom knows her, right? Everybody knows her. I called my sister. Talked to her, and I called my brother. Probably the people that know me the best. I think that's a fair statement to make. Well, after I hung up with my brother, I hung up with my mother and my sister, I was very encouraged. Well, the conversation with my brother, it went a little bit differently. So he really messed up. And I said, "Hey, man, look, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to give a message in church." And I said, "Maybe you could, if you're not going to your church," I said, "maybe you could show up." Dead silence on the phone. Nothing. "Hello? You still there? Hello?" He said, "You don't know what?" I said, "You heard me right." I said, in a couple of weeks, when I started trying to explain, he just busted out laughing on the phone. He was just laughing out loud. He said, "Whose idea is it for you to give a message in front of Congress?" I said, "Well, our preacher asked me to." He said, "Is he crazy? Has he lost his mind?" And I thought, And I've heard some people in the congregation say it and think about it, crazy never came up. I've never heard that specifically, crazy. Well, the reason he knows me so well probably is for the first 19 years of my life when we grew up together, we shared a room together. And we actually had one shower also in that house. And it got complicated there sometimes. As teenagers waking up and going to school, you can just imagine kind of how that goes. Well, the only time that I was really ever separated from my brother, mother, and sister would have been when I went away to go to Troy State University. My first quarter at Troy State University, it was not good. I had a lot of new friends though. I was living in a new place, had a new roommate. Man, I was living good. I had something else too, I had a lot of new freedom. Oh man, that didn't serve me too well. As a result of a lot of new freedom and a new place and all that kind of thing, my grades were basically in the toilet. There's a lot of ways to describe that. That's one way to put it, you know? They weren't good at all. Periodically, my mother would call and she'd say, Mark, how you doing? I said, Mom, I'm all right. She'd say, how are your grades? I said, well, sure it's a pretty day outside today. Mommy, you know I sure do love you. You know? She said, boy, I didn't call you for a forecast on the weather. I said, how are your grades? I said, Mama, I'm kind of struggling with that a little bit. It's not like it was when you were up here, it's a lot harder. These professors, you know, they don't know me, they don't like me. It's just Mom, it's a lot different. You understand it's harder. It's real difficult. She said, okay, well listen to me, don't bring no bad grades in this house. I said, oh man. I sure hated to hear that. Because I knew I knew. Well, of course, end of the quarter came. By the way, that quarter I had an 8 o'clock class and I had a 9:45 class in the morning. I didn't learn much that quarter, but I learned this. If you have an 8 o'clock class and a 9:45 class, and you wake up at 10:15 in the morning, you're not going to do well. You're just not going to do it. When my grades eventually came in to my mother, this is before the internet and email, a whole lot of that stuff going on, and they got sent to my mom. And I remember I was home for the quarter, and I walked in the house, the screen door slammed behind me, and this is what I heard coming out of the den. Mark Wesley Morgan, get in here now. I said, man, my mouth gets dry saying it right now. That's what's wrong. I said, oh no, this is not good. I knew that she had my grades in there. And I was not looking forward to going in there and speaking with her about it. A few things you need to know about Mama. She's not here, is she? I think she's coming to 11 o'clock, so. We grew up in a time where physically disciplining your children, it was kind of becoming politically incorrect. It was less popular. There were better methods of handling the misbehaviors of your children. You could take them to a child psychologist, you could take them to counseling, you could let your child sit there and explain in front of everybody why they misbehave and why things are going wrong. What is it about you that's making you act this way? You can take away privileges, you can take away their allowance, you can ground them. You know, any method of that seemed appropriate. Beatings, whippings, and spankings were losing traction across the United States. Unless you lived at my house. And let me tell you something. Whippings, beatings, whoopings, whatever you want to call it, they were getting around my house. I mean, I remember one particular summer, and when I tell my children this now, they look at me and just go, like they don't believe me. Many of you won't believe me. My mom will be here at 11 o'clock. She'll back me up on this. Well, one particular summer, she was a school teacher, so she's off during the summer. Somebody in my house got it every single day. It was either me or my brother or my sister. I might be acting out on Monday and get it. Well, Tuesday was my brother. Wednesday was my sister. By the time Thursday came around, it was about time for me to get it again. That's just kind of how it went. Again, when I tell people that, they just look at me puzzled. But I don't want to put the image out there that my mother was killing us, because I only probably got one spanking or whipping for about every 10 I deserved. But all this was going through my mind when I walked in that door and I started heading into the den. I think it's appropriate that I was going into the den because it felt like the lion's den. It felt like that's where I was headed. Well, You got to remember that we were pretty much grown later in life. My brother and I were teenagers, my sister was a teenager. And there was some knockdown drag-outs going on in my house. My mom was not playing. I mean, I sat there and watched my brother go down. I was like, oh, man, I won't know that. My mom was undefeated. She was the champ. And she had quick hands. I mean, you would do something wrong and you would think you had gotten away with it, and you just come bebopping by her 10 minutes later, and all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, man, you'd be laying on the ground with toes turned up, not knowing what just happened. And that was just her method. That's just what she did, and that's how she did it. Well, again, this was going through my mind as I'm walking in that room in that den. As I approached the den and got inside the den, she stood up. And she took about 2 little quick steps toward me. I thought, well, it's on now. I don't really have to defend myself. But she didn't hit me. She walked right over to me and she put her nose on my nose. This close. She was so close to me that she was blurry. You know what I mean? You couldn't even tell who they were. But they're just right there. You don't even know who you're talking to. And she said, you sit down. Now, I was like, oh no. When my mama said sit down like that, you did not look around for a chair. You just sat down. That's exactly what I did. There I was sitting in the middle of the den on the floor, scared to death. Grown. I was 20 years old. You know? My mama was walking around me like this, pointing her finger at me in my face. And she began to explain things to me in a way that I could understand them a little better. Maybe she was using a parable so I could understand it. I don't know. But we discussed stewardship, man. We discussed finances. We discussed business. You see, that first quarter at Troy, I had been a poor steward. I had not used my time well, my talents well. I had not used my scholastic abilities well. Any of this stuff I had not used well. Well, she began to explain to me how it was going to be from now on in a way that I could get it. And I got it. I mean, it was crystal, man. When I say I got it, I got it. Well, the last thing she said to me before she allowed me to leave the room was this. She said, Mark, when you come back from that school next quarter, boy, if you're not on the dean's list, you're coming home. Dean's list. Y'all can't imagine how far I was away from the dean's list. I'm telling you. She said, and when you come home, she said, here's what I'm going to do. You're going to go to work with a full-time job. And when you do, when you get your check, when you earn your money, you're going to give it to me. And when you give it to me, I'm going to decide what to do with it. I'm going to decide. I might give you some of it, I might not. It'll be up to me. Because you demonstrated to me an inability to handle these responsibilities. Well, she was dead on the money, right? And I really couldn't argue with that. She was absolutely right on all counts. Well, the first thing I did the next quarter when I got back to Troy was find out what the dean's list was. I didn't know. That's the first thing I felt like I needed to do, was figure that out. What I did, I figured out what it was, and when I got back to school, I was a different student. Y'all hear me? I had a revelation in my life. I was a different person. I was just totally different in a lot of ways. I deliberately scheduled another 8 o'clock class. I got a part-time job because I squandered all my money the quarter before and I didn't have a quarter. I deliberately scheduled more hours too. I had a lot more hours in that next quarter. Well, the way the university was arranged, the first class in the morning, the professor actually had to unlock the door from the inside because his office was in there where the classroom was. And let me tell y'all something. At 10 minutes to 8, when the professor got there to unlock the door, my hand was on the knob on the other side. I was rattling it around. I said, let me in there. Let me in there. Please let me in there. And I got to that class at 8 o'clock in the morning. I said, well, that's fine. I even bought one of those little tape recorders. Y'all remember those cassettes in. This was before iPads and iTouches and smartphones and all that kind of stuff. I started I invested in one. When that professor began to speak, I would take that recorder and set it down just like that. I hit record and I started making the notes. When he finished, I didn't stop. I gathered my stuff and I was gone. That afternoon, what was fresh on my mind, I played it back over a couple times. And when the test time came around, guess what? I knew the answer. I was ready. As a result of that increased effort in that conversation with Mom, I made it do this. Hard to believe. I know you look shocked. But I did. I'm not going to tell you how many times I made it after that. But that particular quarter, guess what? I was there. I had a complete understanding of what she meant. Well, the next 3 years at Troy, classes got harder. It got more difficult. I declared a major to be finance. I was particularly interested in that. Stocks and bonds and investments and mutual funds and all those kind of things. And I was really interested in that. I found some of that stuff to be fascinating. But I met a lot of professors from all different walks of life. Some white, some Republican, Democrat, Auburn fans, Alabama fans, you know, Christian, non-Christian. I never could get a straight answer out of any of you guys. I was puzzled about that a little bit. You know, you could ask me and say, hey, what happens when this happens in the market and the economy? You might get this answer. I appreciate that. You go ask this professor, hey, what happens when that happens in the economy or the marketplace? You might get a totally different answer, totally different. Well, I was puzzling me. I thought, man, if I could just come up here and go to school for 4 years and make it something, I appreciate it. And that's something I can sink my teeth into. And this is it. Well, I want to call your attention to your bulletin today. Inside your bulletin, you'll find something that was originally titled The Ministries of Gulf Shores United Methodist Church. I'm going to go back to that title shortly. And I'm sure I left somebody out of that ministry, and I'm sorry in advance. The best list I could come up with. We changed the name of that just for today, I believe. It's a long-term investment opportunity, because that's really what it is. Long-term investment opportunities, things of eternal consequence. Well, I hadn't intended to say this, but when I left the service, I've done 3 of these, by the way, this week. When I left the service, after 8:30, a friend of mine stopped me out there and he said, hey, I want to tell you something. What you got? He said, man, you left out something really important. I said, oh, no. Don't tell me. He said, yeah. He said, you talked about investing and all that kind of stuff. He said, not once did you mention the word risk. He said, the whole reason that long-term investments generally achieve a higher rate of return is because you have more risk. You get more involved. You get more time involved, more stuff involved. He said, they're more risky. I said, yeah. I said, man, you're exactly right. I said, but I think you missed the whole point, man. He said, I did? I said, I think so. I said, you're talking about financial risk, right? He said, yeah. I said, you're talking about monetary risk, right? He said, yes. I said, I'm talking about eternal risk, man. I said, there's a big, big, big difference. He said, oh, I get it. I said, good. Good. Well, I'll close with one more story. This one I got from an old Billy Graham song. Ellen laid it on the counter about a month ago. I picked it up and began to read it, and I thought it was cute, so I'll share it. Albert Einstein, one of the brightest minds in the world, was traveling on a train from point A to point B. He often traveled this way, often traveled this train. Everybody on the train knew it. He knew half the people on the train were working. This particular day, he's sitting in the seat, and the young man comes through the passenger car collecting tickets. Tickets, please, tickets, please. He approaches Einstein, and he says, man, he's fidgety. He can't find his ticket. He's reaching in his pocket. He don't know what's going on. The young man approaches him. He kind of stands over him, staring at him, waiting on him. He finally says, look, Dr. Einstein, listen. I know that you bought a ticket. You travel this train off, and I know who you are. You know who I am. The young man said, don't worry. about your ticket, just enjoy your trip. Don't worry about your ticket, just enjoy your trip. I sat down, the young man continued over the back of the car, collected the ticket, turned back around. When he turned around, Einstein was on his hands and knees on the floor up under the seat, scratching around. I said, man, I told him, what's he doing? I was pretty fast, my little boy. He helps him up and he says, Einstein said, man, I told you not to worry about this, to enjoy your trip. And I know you bought a ticket, just relax and enjoy your trip. Einstein looked straight at that young man and said, see, young man, you don't understand. I too know that I bought a ticket, but I have no idea where I'm going. That's the other good news for all of us in here today, is we know exactly where we're going. And, you know, maybe, just maybe, the point of all this talk, long-term investing and all that kind of stuff, is about helping somebody else go along too.